Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to head over to Korea once again, and we're going to return to a brewery that has now featured on the channel a couple of times before. Now, I've had some really nice beers from these guys over the last couple of years, a good few different styles, and if people were to ask me about this brewery, I would say that they are just pretty solid all round. If you pick a style of beer that you like from them, you probably are going to get a very good example of it. Now, the beer we're going to have a look at today is a style that I haven't tried from this brewery before. It's a style that I really quite enjoy, and one that I would say is becoming quite popular again in recent times. I've heard very good things about this particular beer, so hopefully it's going to be a pretty nice one. So needless to say, I'm very curious to see what this beer is going to have in store for us. Hopefully it's another good beer. Hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and as always, I hope that you guys watching enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for this review then, we are going to head to the island of Jeju in Korea, which is kind of off the southeastern tip, if you like. We're going to go to a little village called Donhocheong in the northern part of the island, and that means that we're going to have a look at another beer from the wonderful Magpie Brewing Company. So this particular beer is called Old Pals Pils. It comes in at 5% ABV, and as the name tells you, this one is a German style Pilsner. So yeah, this should be really quite interesting. This is yet another beer that I picked up from the wonderful Craftissimo in Seungwan over on Hong Kong Island, and this was recommended to me by Akil. He told me this one's good, and you know, he's pointing me in the direction of some very, very nice beers over the last year or so. So yeah, if you find yourself in Hong Kong, do make sure you go and check out Craftissimo. They've always got a great selection of things from all across the world. So yeah, let's crack on with this one then and see what it's going to have in store for us. The Old Pals Pills at 5% ABV from Magpie Brewing Company in Donhocheong, Jeju, Korea. So, as always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting though, just fast forward. All the usual links can be found in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Magpie Brewing Company before, and we will no doubt add more to that list at some point in the near future. There's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The support that you give is massively appreciated, and remember, you can go into the channel homepage and search for beer using the geography tagging system. So just go in there, use the little search bar, put in your hometown, state, county, province, whatever you like. If I've reviewed beers from the area that you search for, they will pop up. Failing that though, you can check out the playlist of beers from different countries. You'll find this one in the Korean playlist along with a number of other things. That's being added to whenever I get the opportunity, which seems to be quite regularly these days. We're getting more and more Korean beers over here in Hong Kong, which I'm very happy about. But do make sure you check out the playlist of beers from other countries as well, because there are some very interesting things on the channel these days. So yeah, let's go on and chat a little bit about Magpie Brewing Company once again, then, not Old Pals Pills. But yeah, Magpie Brewing Company, as I've told you before, were founded back in 2011 in Seoul by 4 friends. This was Eric Moynihan, Tiffany Needham, Jason Lindley, and also Shabat. But all of these guys came to Korea as English teachers, and Moynihan is from Canada and the others are from the US. But apparently Eric and Jason wanted to develop what they called a DIY lifestyle, and they've done various things like cheese making, and they also owned a restaurant called Scout in Seoul as well. But around 2006 or 2007, Jason got into home brewing beer, and then the 3 guys got really deep into this hobby. But they apparently also have a TV show called Semi-Permanent, which looks into the lives of fellow expats across Korea, and that airs on the channel Arirang, and they of course own the building in which the brewery is now located. But in 2012 they opened their brewing space in Gyeongridan in Seoul with a pale ale and then their porter, and they've continually expanded the beer range since then. For a while they'd actually been contract brewing their beers with The Table, Seven Brow and Cabrew just to keep up demand, because they proved to be very, very popular. Later though, in 2014, through the establishment of a partnership with Arario Gallery, they opened up a new bar in the Tapdong area of Jeju City, and this was what moved their main focus to Jeju Island. But then in 2016, they opened up their new brewery in an old tangerine warehouse in the tiny village of Donhocheong, which is kind of up a hill actually. It's quite nice. But in addition to this, they've got their brew shop bar in the Yongsan area of the Itaewon district of Seoul, and previously they had one in Hongdae as well. But their Tapdong and the Tapdong bar obviously is still going in Jeju City too. But they offer beer tastings, brewery tours, and home brewing classes in the different locations. So there's always something to do at the Magpie Brewery places. But as of October 2024, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced just over 120 different varieties of beer. Like I said to you, these guys are pretty well rounded. They do a lot of different things, and the brewery is named after the magpie bird, which in Korea is widely regarded as the bringer of good news and a symbol of good luck. But yeah, that is everything I can really tell you about Magpie Brewing Company for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website, you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer, Beer Advocate or Untappd pages to learn a wee bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's go on then and actually have a little look at the beer itself. As you can see from the can, the artwork on this one is pretty straightforward. That's the main part of it here, but then yeah, you've got this little bit on the side here, the old pals meeting and having a nice little hug. I do quite like that. this is a half-litre can, incidentally. You can see plain silver top on it. This one I believe cost me 50 Hong Kong dollars, which is about £5 sterling, €5.50, $6 American, something like that. I don't know how much it would actually be in Korea. I need to get back over there and see what their beer prices are like. But yeah, like I said, 5% Pilsner. This one, they're calling it a German Pils specifically. For those of you who don't know, the Pilsner as a style originates from the now Czech city of Pilsen. At the time the style was developed in the 1840s, if I'm not mistaken, it was part of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, so you had ethnic Germans and ethnic Czechs living in the area, but the style was developed by a Bavarian brewer who moved there to work for the company that is now Pilsner Urquell, or Plzeňský Prazdroj as the Czechs call it. So the style started in Czech. These days though, the Czech Pilsners tend to be a little bit more kind of yeasty leaning, I would say, a little bit more yeasty and kind of bready, and of course the hoppy side of it is a little bit spicier because of the nature of the Czech Žatec hops, whereas the German Pilsners tend to be that little bit more kind of biscuity leaning, and of course the green component's a wee bit smoother because of the Hallertau and Tettnang hops. So yeah, little subtle differences, and they're calling this one a German Pils. So I do expect this one to be a little bit more kind of clean, I guess we can say, and then a little bit more kind of smooth in its hoppy character, but we'll just need to see. But yeah, 5% German Pils, this one, the old Pals Pils from Magpie Brewing Company in Donhocheong, Jeju, Korea. So yeah, let's get this guy out into the glass then and see what it's all about. I'm really curious about this one, and this was quite a random find actually. I think I got one of the last 2 cans from Craftissimo, or this one, and Akio was quite positive about this one, and he always, as I say, puts me in the direction of really nice beers. So there we go. There you go, that's a very nice pour. Look at that, a proper German pour there. So yeah, because it's a lager, of course, I had to go with my Young Master Stein for this one. But yeah, before the head disappears then, you can see the beer is poured with about 1.5 fingers of a frothy, I would say, yeah, I think that's a perfect white head. But you can see if I bring it up to the camera, you can see it's got some nice kind of smaller bubbles on the surface of the liquid there, but it's a little bit soapier the further up that you go, but that's to kind of be expected. As you can see as well, it's poured a lovely kind of pale golden straw colour. It's got a bit of natural haze to it, as you can see, and that's a bit more common with the Czech Pilsners actually. Usually the German ones are kind of clear, but not always, we have to say that. especially if you get them from the little local brauhouses. But yeah, it certainly looks the part. Remember, the colour of your beer depends on a few different things. One, the type of malts that you use. This goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. Two, length of your wort boil is going to play a role, because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise, and thus you get a darker colour of beer. But any barrel aging that you do or adjuncts you put into the beer will affect its colour as well. But you don't often have to care about that when it comes to different lagers, in all honesty. And remember, the technical definition of a lager is a beer that ferments using bottom fermenting yeast at lower temperatures, usually 8 to 12 degrees. Ales ferment at about 15, 16 degrees using top fermenting yeasts. But yeah, it looks pretty nice, this one, I have to say. So a nice kind of cloudy German style Pilsner, this one, a hazy German style Pilsner. Don't think we need to say anything more about the appearance of this one. There are one or two little bits of sediment visible, and you can see there are a few little bits of carbonation just kind of floating around with this one. But yeah, let's go on and have a little look at the aroma of this beer then and see what we have. I'm very curious about this one. Yeah, smells pretty nice, pretty much what you'd expect. Now, I'll point out as well, with Pilsners, you can drink them from like a kind of tall, thin-rimmed glass. I like the Steins, I have to admit. In Czech, they're more likely to drink them from a Stein, whereas in Germany, I think they tend to use taller glass. Really just depends. But this one smells really quite nice, actually. Leaning toward the yeasty and smooth end of the spectrum, I would say. It kind of gives you everything you'd expect. You've got that wee bit of hoppy character in there. You've also got the nice little bit of fruitiness out of it. Good little bit of malty character as well. It smells pretty nice. I will say though, it's not too dry on the aroma. I think if I was given this one blind, I might end up saying that it's like a Helles of some description rather than a Pilsner, but we'll see. But it does smell really nice. I think, yeah, probably, I have to be honest and say, if I was given this and asked to figure out what it is, from the aroma, I would very likely say Helles, because it's just that little bit smoother. It doesn't have the kind of dryness in the aroma that you would kind of expect of a Pilsner, actually, but still, that's not a big deal. I think maybe as your nose adjusts to it, you start to get a wee bit more of the dryness, but yeah. But the backbone of the way the aroma goes together in this beer is pretty much what you'd expect. So the backbone of it, you've got this lovely kind of fresh white bready bread crust in there. You are, of course, getting little hints of woody character, cracker and things like this too. So yeah, as I said, white bready bread crust, little bit of wood, little bit of cracker. There's definitely a little bit of there's definitely a little bit of kind of brown bread in the base here, which is interesting. So yeah, a little bit of brown bready character, then yeah, quite a wee bit of a fluffy kind of white bready character as well. So yeah, fluffy white bready character, little bit of brown bread underneath, and then you start to get the Pilsner malty notes out of this. Once your nose adjusts to this beer, kind of further back, you do get that little bit of Pilsner malty dryness in the top of the nose. I'd be very curious where they're getting their malt from, actually, because the way that the different subtleties of the malt come out doesn't seem overly familiar in a sense. This Pilsner malt is a little bit, it smells almost a little touch sweet in a sense, whereas yeah, the German Pilsner malt is going to be that little bit drier, and the Czech one, of course, quite a lot of the dryness in the Czech Pilsner comes from the yeast as well. So yeah, when I sugar it up a little bit more, you can smell that more kind of dry Pilsner malty note there, that dry kind of white bready crispness, if you like. And then above that, you start to get the above that you start to get the kind of biscuity. There's like a little bit of that sweet kind of biscuity character in there. You can smell more of the kind of McVitie's digestive biscuity type qualities, but in the centre of those you can also smell that more kind of concentrated oily biscuit, and that will of course be the boozy side of the beer. But yeah, the way that that goes together, I have to say, is quite is pretty damn nice. So on the yeah, you do, as I say, a little bit of McVitie's digestive biscuit, a little bit of a sweeter, more concentrated biscuit, but I don't think there's too much else to say about the kind of malty side of this beer, in honesty. I think we'll get a bit more complexity out of the actual flavour of it. But yeah, the Pilsner malty side of this one actually comes across as being a little bit sweeter, almost. So yeah, that's quite interesting. Yeah, on the yeasty side of things, then you definitely get a good little bit of yeasty character in the back of the nose with this one. So for me, the yeasty character actually has a little bit of a kind of almost sweet note to it as well. So at the back of the nose, it's almost like, it's kind of white bready, but it's almost like a kind of bread and buttery type white bread that comes out of this one. So yeah, sort of bread and buttery white bread coming out of this beer for me, and that yeastiness, it sits in the back of the nose there. Yeah, interesting stuff in that regard, I have to say. I really do like how that pieces together too. Yeah, I like that. I do like that. So yeah, a little bit of, as I say, a little bit of kind of more bread and buttery, white bready character from the yeast. That's going to be interesting to see how that turns out in the actual flavour. But yeah, the hoppy side of things then, the green component is most definitely German in this one. So probably Hallertau or Tettnang in there. So you do get that slightly distinctive smooth earthiness in there. It has got a wee bit of like woodiness to it as well. Bit of floral aromaticity, and also that wee bit of grassiness as well. So yeah, little earthy, little woody, nice little bit of floral aromaticity, and that bright grassiness too. But yeah, on the fruity side of things, it's kind of what you'd expect. You know, the Hallertau Tettnang hops are always going to give you just a little bit of fruitiness. So for me, the fruity side of the beer is, it's got a little bit of apricot for sure. There's some kind of like almost sultana type notes, you know, dry white green grape. A little bit of oily pear as well. So the way that that goes together is quite nice too. Yeah, really nicely made beer. I have to say that about it for sure. A really nice smelling beer, I should say. So yeah, aroma, this one's quite nice. I will say that the aroma it really does come across a little bit more Helles-like until your nose gets into it, as I said earlier. But yeah, then you start to get some of the Pilsnery qualities there, and I would say though too that it does come across as being a kind of more sweet Pilsner rather than anything else. So yeah, the way that all of that pieces together in this one, I think, is very, very nice. So take a wee bit of time, as I always say, to enjoy the aroma of your beer before you get stuck in, but I think it is about time that we taste this one and see what it's all about. So yeah, this is the Old Pals Pils, a 5% German-style Pilsner from Magpie Brewing Company in Donhocheong on the island of Jeju in South Korea. So let's get stuck into this one. Slange, Skål, cheers, Gambe, and a big shout out to Akil for his recommendation to Gambe. Ooh, that's good. First impression, it does have a little bit of a sweetness and almost just a little bit of zip to it when you first take it in. So there's a wee bit of zip to the palate on this one, and that's kind of what I was picking up in the aroma as well. But as you go into the aftertaste, it really does show its Pilsner character. It's really interesting, this one, for me, how it shows so little of the Pilsner dryness in the aroma, yet in the flavour it's really, really apparent. That's really interesting, that. Yeah, there's quite a high percentage of this malt base must be Pilsner malt in this one, and of course you'd expect that with a Pilsner, but quite often the biggest chunk of the malt base in these beers is actually pale malt. So yeah, you can taste with this one the dryness, the kind of crispness that you expect from the Pilsner malt. But I will say that's a really nicely done beer. So thumbs up to Magpie for this one. This is really solid. These guys are good at lagers. I think the last beer we reviewed from these guys was the Wisp, which was the smoked lager. That was good as well. So yeah, they say it does have a wee bit of a sweeter impact, but yeah, after that it gives you everything you'd kind of expect. So a really well done beer. Yeah, let's do as we always do then and just break it down. But this beer gives you everything you want. You've got the breadiness, the crispness, the dryness, the little bit of sweetness, and that good little bit of hoppy bite to it as well. But yeah, middle third of your palate then. The backbone of the beer, you get this kind of fresh white bready bread crust in there. As I say, I think that goes together really, really nicely. So yeah, lovely kind of fresh white bready bread crust coming out of this one. As you move further forward on that middle third of your palate, you do get a wee touch of like a kind of Jacob's cream cracker. So yeah, a little touch of like Jacob's cream cracker, woodiness, sorry. So you've got the fresh white bready bread crust in there. Pardon me, get a little bit of gas out of that. I will say this beer does have a good wee bit of carbonation to it. But yeah, you've got that little bit of, you definitely have that little bit of sort of woodiness to this beer. And then above the bread crust and the woodiness, you get the more kind of Jacob's cream crackery type quality as well. So yeah, the way that that goes together is really, really quite nice. That's the backbone of the beer, yeah. White bready bread crust, a little bit of kind of woodiness in there, which comes out particularly in the aftertaste, and then you've got the crackery layer too. But yeah, above that you get the kind of wholemeal, brown bready sort of note with this one too. But yeah, so above the cracker you get the more kind of wholemeal brown bready sort of character in there, and that lingers into the aftertaste too. It adds a little bit of sweetness almost to the beer, but then yeah, you've got the more fluffy white bready character coming out of the beer, which I do really quite like. So yeah, more kind of fluffy and airy white bready note. Yeah, and the bread actually, the more that you drink of the beer, it gives you a little bit more kind of sweetness as well, especially the white bready part really gives you that bit of sweetness. But above the white bready layer, you start to get the kind of Pilsner malty type qualities out of this one. So generally speaking, sweeter flavours come out further forward on the palate, more dry and bitter flavours come out further back. That's very apparent in this particular beer. So yeah, you have at the back of that middle third of your palate, you get the real big kind of Pilsner malty crisp notes coming out of the beer. And that does linger into the aftertaste, but as you move further forward over the top of the white bready layer, there's that little bit of more oily McVitie's digestive biscuit coming out of it. So yeah, you can feel the kind of crisp biscuity quality to the beer. So yeah, nice kind of crisp biscuity quality in there, and then in the dead center of the palate, there's a little bit more of a kind of concentrated oily biscuit that I was talking about earlier. You could smell that in the aroma too. So you've got that concentrated oily biscuit. Then as you move further out toward the edge of the palate, you've got a little bit more just kind of like crispness and dryness to it. So it's quite interesting. I think that describes the middle third of the palate in this beer pretty comprehensively, to be honest. But yeah, let's go to the back third of the palate. As I've often said, the back third of your palate will give you very similar flavours to the middle third of your palate, just at different intensities, obviously. So yeah, the border region between middle and back third of your palate, you get that nice little bit of bready build up in there. So you've got the kind of brown bread in the base, the white bread in the middle, and then the more crisp kind of Pilsner malt sitting on top of that. But yeah, the base of that, the base of the kind of back third of the palate, you do have that kind of white bready bread crust again. You've got the Jacob's cream cracker, and then above that you've got the more kind of brown bready sort of notes there. So yeah, you've got that more kind of fluffy, airy brown bready character, and it just feels, the layer of that, it feels a little bit lighter, taller, and more airy. Then above that, yeah, you've got the white bready character, which again feels a little bit lighter, taller, and more airy. And yeah, you also have the little bit of the kind of the dryness of the crisp Pilsner malts just sitting above that. And then of course on the top of the back third of your palate, it's got a little bit more yeastiness to it as well. So yeah, the yeasty side of this beer for me, it's got, at its core, it's got a little bit more of a kind of, I would say, like a very crisp white bread at its core. Then as you move out from it, it gives you a little bit of a more sweet, grainy brown bread, and then it's a little bit of bread crust around the very edge as well. So yeah, the way that all of that pieces together is really very nice. So yeah, dry white bread at the core, a sweeter but more grainy brown bread around the edge, and then yeah, white bread, kind of bread crusty note around the very edge of that. But yeah, definitely back third of your palate, you can feel the flavour is a little bit, yeah, definitely a bit taller. Then as you move further forward into the middle third of your palate, it just kind of condenses down and squashes together that little bit more. But yeah, I think we've covered the malty and yeasty side of this beer pretty well. Yeah, so on the hoppy side of things then, the green component, back corners of the palate, you've definitely got a nice little bit of earthiness there. As you move further forward, it absolutely gives you a little bit of a more earthy, woody kind of character. And as you push further forward, it becomes floral and aromatic, but it's actually quite spicy, in all honesty. I'd be very curious to know what hops they've used in this. Have they maybe used a little bit of like Pearl or Hercules or something, one of the slightly higher alpha acid German hops? Because it does give you that little bit more bitterness, in all honesty. But round the front curve of the palate, it's got a wee bit more of a kind of grassy note, and it's quite a zesty grassiness as well. So yeah, for me, the grassiness on this one, that kind of, the grassiness and the sort of floral spice does linger into the aftertaste. That's interesting too. But yeah, let's have a wee look at the let's have a little look at the front third of your palate then. So the border region between front third and middle third of your palate, you get that nice little bit of bready build up in there once again. So it's kind of brown bread in the base, white bread in the middle, then the more kind of Pilsner, dry Pilsner malty character on top of that. But yeah, the base of that front third of your palate, yeah, you get the kind of bread crusty character once again, the cracker actually, and the brown bread and the white bread, and you get the smoother side of the Pilsner malt above the white bread, which is interesting. But then yeah, you've got that nice oily bubble sitting on top of that nice oily bubble kind of sits on top of the malty characters there. So at the back of that oily bubble, what are we saying we're getting? Yeah, I would say there's a good little bit of yeah, it has quite a little bit of a kind of more, a sort of generic kind of citrusy note there at the back of the front third of your palate. But then yeah, as you move further forward, you get this softer kind of like sultana type quality out of it, and more like, you know, dry white green grapes. Then as you reach the middle of that front third of your palate, it's a more kind of There's like a sort of dry apricot in the middle of that, and then as you move into the front half of the front third of your tongue, it's more like a kind of oily pear, and there's just a wee bit of that kind of lemony limey type character from the hops coming out of this one as well. So all in all, the way that that goes together, I think, is really quite interesting. Yeah, quite happy with that, in all honesty. Yeah, it's interesting stuff for sure, the way that this beer kind of pieces together. Yeah, for me, the way this Pilsner goes together is really, really nice. It's certainly got more. The more that you drink of it, the more Czech it seems in character rather than German, in a sense. Like the mouthfeel is German, but you know, the spiciness of the hops and the kind of dryness of the Pilsner malt, or the dryness of the Pilsner malt's a bit more German, but you get the yeasty character, which is more something I would associate with the Czech Pilsners. So it's an interesting take on the style, this one, actually. So yeah, some one that's made me think a little bit, and that is of course what you want after 4,000 odd beer reviews. But a very good lager beer, and I certainly wouldn't hesitate to drink this one again. A really nice example of the Pils, and it's cool to find one that's like quite this authentic from Korea. I'm not sure how many breweries over in Korea are really brewing this sort of style, if you like. But yeah, very happy with this one, very happy with it. But yeah, let's round off the review then with a wee quick look at the mouthfeel. So for me, mouthfeel wise, this beer, yeah, top end of light bodied, I would say. Carbonation in this one is really quite crisp. I'm not sure how fresh the can is. Does it say? 23, 11, 24. So I'm guessing that's the kind of drink by date. But yeah, carbonation on this one does have a good little bit of a prickle to it. I didn't see this beer in I didn't actually see this beer in Craftissimo before when I'd been in, so I'm guessing it is fairly fresh and it's just sold out quite quickly. But yeah, good little bit of crispness to this beer, in terms of quite clean as well. The water quality, so you can feel that with it. It's got a lovely cleanliness to it. But the IBU count on this beer, I think this has got to be about 40. It does have a little bit more bitterness and kind of spiciness on the hoppy side of things. The malty base, as we said, it's a little bit drier underneath. You've got the smooth bready character in the middle, then a little touch of sweetness sitting on top of that. But yeah, the way that that goes together is really nice. And then yeah, you've just got this little bit of fruity character coming out of it too. So yeah, the way it goes together, I think, is really quite nice. I certainly wouldn't hesitate to drink it again. I think this is one that I need to try. I need to go back to Jeju and actually go and visit this brewery. That would certainly be quite fun, actually. But yeah, I think we've said everything we really need to about this beer, in all honesty. This one was the Old Pals Pils, a 5% Pilsner from Magpie Brewing Company in Donhocheong on Jeju in South Korea. So yeah, really nice example of the Pils style, this one. Some German character, some Czech character, so somewhere in the middle. But yeah, once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Magpie Brewing Company as well. And we will no doubt return to these guys again at some point in the very near future. But until the next time, Slàinte, skål, cheers. Check out my social media, check out Magpie Brewing social media. Do give me some Korean brewery recommendations as well, and we'll see about reviewing some of those for you on the channel over the next wee while. But until then, Slàinte, skål, cheers, and see you later. Ciao just now.